I'm here today to talk about your fiction piece, which is the major assignment you'll be doing in this course. Several of you have asked me to post some guidelines, and I refer you to the hierarchy of needs in the course outcomes section of the syllabus, which I've put up here, in terms of the approach you need to take in your fiction piece. You are creating a fictional story. And let's look at number two really quickly, characters, because fiction is about characters. The first thing you need in any piece of fiction is a main character. Um, and you need to create a character that is not you, um, but that is someone that the reader can care about, whether this person is good or bad or a mixture of both. We need a main character to root for, root against, or to emotionally invest in some way. Um, so the key to writing fiction is to create a character or characters that people care about and then put them in situations that matter. Um, there ought to be some sort of challenge for the character to overcome or meet. There ought to be some element of risk involved. Um, so you need, first of all, a compelling main character. You need to surround that character with other characters. Now, you've probably read stories such as Jack London's To Build a Fire that only have one character. It's possible to do, but usually stories involve characters interacting with other characters. Story structure. Start the story where the story starts. If you are writing about um, um, oh, uh, something that involves travel. If you're writing a road story, start the story with something that's um, start the story with an event that matters to the rest of the story. I can't tell you how many stories I've read about, for instance, the championship sports game, where the character gets up, has breakfast, gets prepared, goes to the ballpark, has a pep talk from the coach, and finally the story starts somewhere around the seventh inning, when the game gets crucial. Recall Casey at the bat, a narrative poem. The story does not start at the beginning of the game. The story does not start at the beginning of the baseball season. The story starts when the crucial action begins in the ninth inning. Or think of Lily Rosemary and the Jack of Hearts. The story starts when the Jack of Hearts walks into the bar. So start the story where the story begins, leave out the stuff that's backstory. Um, a good friend of mine says a story should never start with the ringing of an alarm clock. A story should never end with a sunset. Frame the story in the most dramatic way that you can. Going back up to number one, this is, of course, the most important thing, that your story be mechanically sound, that grammar, spelling, and punctuation are in place. Punctuate dialogue properly, spell words correctly, and so forth. Okay, going back down the list of needs. Style. Use language that is vivid, active, and specific. We've talked about adverbs not being your friends. We've talked about using accurate nouns and descriptive verbs. Move the story along. Don't over-explain. Don't say, gee, you look terrific, he said sarcastically. The sarcasm should come out in the dialogue. Suspension of disbelief. That's probably the hardest thing to get a handle on in creative writing. Does your story immerse the reader to such an extent that he or she forgets that you are telling a story and relates to the characters and situations as real? This is especially true when you're writing non-realistic fiction, such as fantasy, such as science fiction. Too many science fiction and fantasy stories fail because the world becomes more important than the characters. In other words, you still have to have compelling characters because you have to make the reader believe, at least for the time that that reader is reading the story, that this is really happening. So it's all right to have a character fighting a dragon, as long as we care about the character and we believe that the character is invested in the situation. So which brings me to the last part, editing and rewriting. And I'm thinking I'm going to put up a discussion on the class site regarding editing and rewriting, where you can post preliminary drafts, and your classmates can look at them, I can look at them, and you can get some sort of feedback. So look for that discussion to be posted on the class site. I'm not going to tell you what to write about because you have your own psyche, your own interests, your own things that your own list of things that you care about. I'm going to give you a few pointers though. Number one, I would strongly suggest you write in the past tense. We've talked about the past tense being the natural way to tell a story. I would also strongly suggest that you write in third person. You've already had practice writing in first person in your memoir, and if you do choose to write in first person, choose a character who is as different from yourself as you can, because I don't want the fiction assignment to be just a dressed up memoir. So I want you to create. I want you to imagine a character or characters. I want you to imagine a setting and a situation. Otherwise, the content of your story is entirely up to you. Your story does need a title. You do need to put your name on any attachments. The length, and I think I've covered this in the assignment post, the length is anywhere between, I would say, 6 or 7 typed double-spaced pages to 20 typed double-spaced pages. And again, the length is not really one of the biggest concerns. If you are, I would rather read a tightly written, suspenseful 8-page story than a padded, over-explained 20-page story. But that is really up to you. So start with a compelling character, add a compelling situation, give the audience a reason to care, and look for a discussion posted on the class site where you can post, let's say the first page or two of a story, and get feedback from your teacher and your peers. So that should give you something to start with.